Admiral Susan Miller stood with perfect posture in the dim light of the United Nations Space Command headquarters. Her gray uniform was crisp, and her expression revealed nothing as she watched the massive holographic projection flicker to life. The faces that appeared were not human. They never were. "Admiral Miller," said the central figure, a tall being with pale blue skin and eyes too large for its narrow face. "I am Supreme Counselor Xerix of the Galactic Council. We speak again, though I had hoped it would not be necessary." Susan didn't respond immediately. She had been through this ritual 6 times before in her 8 years as Earth's military representative. Each time, the Council found something new about humanity to criticize. "The Council has reviewed your species' activities over the past standard cycle," Xerix continued. "We find them deeply concerning. Your expansion beyond your home system continues at an alarming pace. Your technological innovations, particularly in weapons development, represent a destabilizing influence in this sector." Behind her, Susan could hear the soft breathing of the 20 other humans in the room, generals, scientists, and political leaders. None of them spoke. This was her show. "With respect, Counselor," Susan finally said, "humanity has remained within the boundaries established by the First Contact Treaty. Our colonies are peaceful. Our research is our own business." A different alien leaned forward, this one with rough, reddish skin and a jaw that seemed too heavy for its head. "You have exceeded your allotted military vessel production by 300%, it growled. "Your energy weapon research violates Section 17 of the Non-Proliferation Agreements." Susan smiled thinly. "Agreements we never signed, Counselor Drac. Humanity joined this galactic community as observers, not subjects." The aliens exchanged glances. Susan had worked with alien species long enough to recognize discomfort, even across the vast differences in biology. "This is not a debate, Admiral," Xerix said. "The Council has made its decision. This is your final warning. Cease all military development beyond your home system immediately. Dismantle the Ganymede weapons facility. Halt production on your new vessel class." Susan's smile faded. "Or what exactly?" "Or face consequences appropriate to the level of your defiance," Xerix said. "The Council has maintained peace among the stars for 12,000 years. We will not allow a single young species to upset that balance because they believe themselves special. You have 30 Earth days to comply, after which—" Susan pressed a button on her wrist panel. The holographic transmission cut off mid-sentence. The room erupted in voices. "Admiral, you can't just. The Council will see this as. Do you realize what you've—" Susan raised her hand, and the room fell silent. They were never going to negotiate. This isn't about peace. It's about control. They'd been moving toward this since we developed faster than light travel. She turned to face the others. "The Ganymede facility stays operational. In fact, I want it reinforced. And I want the UES Defiance completed within 20 days, not 60. General Paul Garcia stepped forward. "The Defiance isn't ready for deployment. We're still testing the hull integrity, and the weapons systems are experimental at best." "Then work faster," Susan said. She walked to the large window overlooking the sprawling complex of the Space Command headquarters. Outside, the Rocky Mountains stood tall against the horizon, unchanged for millions of years. For all their talk of peace, the Council has been preparing for this. So have I. She turned back to the room. "Send word to all our outposts. Full alert status. Call back every engineer and weapons specialist we have. And contact Dr. Wright on Ganymede. Tell him his Frostfire protocol just got approved." As the others hurried to follow her orders, Susan looked once more at the empty space where the alien faces had been. "You want humanity to know its place," she said quietly. "Well, we're about to show you exactly where that is." Dr. Alan Wright jumped when the lab doors slid open. He wasn't expecting visitors, especially not on Ganymede where the temperature outside was cold enough to freeze oxygen. He looked up from his workstation and froze. Admiral Susan Miller herself stood in his doorway, her breath visible in the chilly air of the research facility. "Admiral," Alan said, quickly standing, "we weren't expecting you for another week." Susan stepped into the lab, her eyes immediately drawn to the glowing blue chamber in the center of the room. "Plans change, Doctor. The Council has issued their final warning." Alan's face fell. "So they finally did it. What are their demands?" "Dismantle this facility. Stop all military development." "The usual," Susan said, walking around the blue chamber. "What's the status of Frostfire?" Alan gestured to the chamber. "We've managed to create a stable field where we can drop temperatures to near absolute zero in microseconds. The energy requirements are still high, but we've made progress." "Show me," Susan said. Alan nodded to his assistant, who tapped on a control panel. Inside the blue chamber, a small metal sphere floated. A second sphere with a faint green glow appeared beside it. "The green one is protected by a shield identical to Council vessel specifications," Alan explained. "Watch what happens when we hit both with Frostfire." He pressed a button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the air inside the chamber shimmered. Both spheres were suddenly covered in white frost. The green glow flickered and died. The unshielded sphere reached -272 degrees Celsius. Alan said, "But the shielded one got colder. Their energy shields actually help conduct our cold field." Susan smiled. "Their greatest defense becomes their weakness." "Exactly," Alan said. "Council ships use energy shields that repel conventional weapons, but Frostfire uses their own shield energy against them. The more power they pump into their defenses, the faster they freeze." In another part of the solar system, Ambassador Cynthia Ross sat in a small room aboard the Harmony Station, the diplomatic hub of the Galactic Council. Unlike the military tension on Ganymede, the atmosphere here was designed to feel peaceful. Soft lights, comfortable furniture, and gentle sounds were meant to encourage cooperation. Cynthia wasn't fooled. Ambassador Ross said, the insect-like being seated across from her, "The Council appreciates your willingness to meet despite recent disagreements." "I'm always willing to talk, Representative Kulvak," Cynthia said, "though I'm curious why this meeting was called with such urgency." The alien's mandibles clicked softly. "The Council hopes to avoid unnecessary conflict." Admiral Miller's reaction to our communication was concerning. "The Admiral found your ultimatum concerning," Cynthia countered. "Threatening a sovereign species rarely leads to productive dialogue." Kulvak's compound eyes reflected the light oddly. "Perhaps we can find a compromise. The Council is willing to extend the compliance deadline by 60 days. Cynthia leaned forward. "That's not a compromise. That's the same demand with a different timeline." "You misunderstand our position," Kulvak said. "The Council maintains peace through uniform adherence to established guidelines. Your species' rapid advancement threatens that stability." Cynthia was about to respond when her personal communication device vibrated. The message was brief. "Leave now. Council fleet deployed." She kept her expression neutral as she stood. "I need to consult with my government before continuing this discussion." Kulvak rose as well. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Ambassador. For security reasons, all human representatives are being temporarily detained on Harmony." Cynthia felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "That's an act of war, Representative." "No," Kulvak said. "It's simply a precaution while the peacekeeping fleet secures your system. For everyone's safety, of course." As guards entered the room, Cynthia realized the negotiations had never been real. The Council had already made their decision, and somewhere between Earth and Neptune, humanity was about to learn just how serious they were. Captain Greg Nelson stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the main view screen. The ship still smelled of fresh paint and new electronics. Technicians worked frantically at several stations, installing last-minute systems even as the ship moved into position. "Status report," Greg said, his voice steady despite the tension. Council fleet has crossed the orbit of Pluto, said Lieutenant Maria Diaz from the sensor station. 37 ships in formation. Their weapons are powered but not targeting yet. Greg nodded. The Defiance was humanity's first true warship, designed specifically for space combat rather than adapted from civilian vessels. It was also supposed to have another 2 months of testing before deployment. "What's the status of Frostfire?" Greg asked. Dr. Alan Wright looked up from where he was working with 2 engineers. His face was pale, and dark circles showed beneath his eyes. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. "The system is online, but untested at full power," Alan said. "We've only run simulations for a ship this size." "Today's not going to be a simulation, Doctor," Greg said. He turned to his communications officer. "Any response to our hail?" "Nothing, sir," the young officer replied. "They're receiving but not answering." The Neptune defense line consisted of the Defiance and 11 converted civilian ships. Mining vessels, research ships, and transport craft had been hastily equipped with weapons and minimal armor. Against 37 dedicated Council warships, they were badly outmatched. "Sir," called Maria, "the Council fleet has stopped at the edge of Neptune's orbit. One ship is breaking formation and moving toward Triton." Triton, Neptune's largest moon, housed a small research outpost studying the moon's nitrogen geysers. 35 civilians, no military presence. "Are they hailing the outpost?" Greg asked. "No, sir. They're—" Maria's voice caught. "They're powering up weapons." Greg's blood ran cold. "Get me an emergency channel to that outpost, now." But it was too late. On the view screen, a bright flash appeared near Triton's surface. When it cleared, the research station was gone. "Message coming in from the Council fleet," the communications officer said, his voice shaking. The view screen changed to show an alien face. The being had gray-green skin with rigid plates along its jaw and forehead. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils. "I am High Marshal Xev Karax of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force," the alien said. "That was your only demonstration. Surrender your vessels and disable your weapons, or the next target will be more populated." Greg felt rage build inside him, but kept his face neutral. "This is Captain Greg Nelson of the United Earth ship Defiance. You just murdered 35 civilians on an unarmed research station. That's an act of war." Xev Karax's expression didn't change. "The Council does not recognize your authority to declare war, Captain. You have 10 minutes to power down your vessels and prepare for boarding." The screen went dark. Greg turned to his crew, who watched him with a mixture of fear and determination. "All ships, battle formation Delta," Greg ordered. "Charge all weapons. Dr. Wright, is Frostfire ready?" Alen nodded grimly. "As ready as it will ever be." "Good," Greg said, "because in 9 minutes we're going to show the Council exactly what happens when you attack humanity." In the silence that followed, Greg looked at the distant dot that was Neptune. Humanity had spent centuries looking up at the stars, dreaming of what lay beyond. Now they knew, and it wasn't friendly. But neither was humanity when provoked. "Lieutenant Diaz, plot an intercept course," Greg said. "Let's introduce ourselves properly." As the Defiance and its small fleet moved forward to face an enemy that had never known defeat, Greg made a silent promise to the victims on Triton. Their deaths would not be in vain. The Council thought they were teaching humanity a lesson. They were about to learn one instead. The first shots of the battle came from the Council ships. Beams of energy streaked across space toward the human vessels. Captain Greg Nelson watched calmly from the bridge of the Defiance. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered, "but hold position between them and Neptune." The human ships scattered like startled birds, but miraculously, most of the energy beams missed. The few that hit struck civilian ships that had been hastily armored. The shields held, but barely. "Sir, their targeting systems seem calibrated for larger vessels," Lieutenant Maria Diaz said. "They're not used to tracking our smaller ships." Greg nodded. First advantage to us. All ships maintain erratic movement patterns, but close distance. Dr. Alan Wright stood beside the weapons station, his fingers flying over a control panel. Frostfire is ready for deployment, Captain, but we need to be closer. Effective range is only 50,000 kilometers. That close and their weapons will tear us apart, Greg said. Not if we're smart about it, Alan replied. Their ships work as a unified defense network. If we target their command vessel first, it might disrupt their coordination. Greg studied the tactical display. Which one is their command ship? The large one at the center of their formation, Maria said. It's nearly twice the size of the others. Greg made his decision. All civilian ships provide covering fire. Draw their attention to the sides of their formation. Defiance will go straight up the middle. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, but no one protested. They trusted their captain. The human fleet split into two groups, firing their limited weapons at the edges of the Council formation. The Council ships responded as expected, turning to engage the perceived threats. Now, Greg said, full power to engines. The Defiance shot forward, accelerating toward the center of the Council fleet. Alarms blared as energy beams struck their shields. Shields at 60%, reported an officer. Keep going, Greg ordered. Doctor, prepare Frostfire. The massive Council command ship grew larger on the view screen. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, with smooth lines and glowing sections that pulsed with power. They're hailing us, said the communications officer. Ignore it, Greg replied. Range to target. 70,000 kilometers in closing, Maria said. They're powering up something big, Captain. Energy readings are off the charts. 60,000 kilometers, Alan said tensely. We need to get closer. The view screen flared white as the Council ship fired its main weapon. The Defiance shuddered violently. Shields at 20%, shouted an officer. One more hit like that, and we're done. 55,000 kilometers, Maria reported. Alan's fingers moved faster over his panel. I can try to fire now, but effectiveness will be reduced. Wait, Greg said. His eyes never left the view screen. Keep closing. The Council ship's weapon began to glow again, preparing for another shot. 50,000 kilometers, Maria said. We're in range. Fire Frostfire, Greg ordered. Alan pressed a final button. From the Defiance, nothing visible happened. No beam, no projectile. For a moment, it seemed like nothing would happen at all. Then something beautiful and terrible began to unfold on the view screen. A wave of white spread across the Council command ship. Its glowing sections dimmed and flickered. The weapon charging sequence stopped. It's working, Alan whispered. Their shields are conducting the cold field throughout their ship. On the view screen, frost patterns appeared across the Council vessel's surface. Its movements became sluggish. Their shields are down, Maria reported, amazement in her voice. All systems on their ship are failing. Greg turned to his weapons officer. Target their engines and weapons. Disable, don't destroy. The Defiance fired conventional weapons, striking the now defenseless Council ship with precision. The massive vessel went dark, drifting silently in space. All Council ships are breaking formation, Maria said. They're retreating. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Greg wasn't celebrating. He watched the Council fleet regrouping at a safe distance. They're not done, he said. They're just reassessing. We've surprised them, but they still outnumber us. What now, Captain? Asked his first officer. Greg studied the tactical display, his expression hardening. We've shown them we can fight. Now let's show them we can win. Prepare to pursue. Sir, the officer questioned. Admiral Miller's orders were to defend Neptune, not to chase them. They came to our home, Greg said quietly. They don't get to leave. Ambassador Cynthia Ross sat in her small detention room aboard the Harmony station. 2 days had passed since she was detained. The room was comfortable but locked from the outside. She had been given no information about events in the Sol system. A soft chime sounded as her door slid open. A tall, slender alien with pale orange skin and 4 arms entered. Cynthia recognized the species as Trell, one of the oldest council members. "Ambassador Ross," the Trell said in a low voice, "I am Representative Valak. We must speak quickly." Cynthia stood, cautious but curious. "Has the council decided to release me?" "The council has made no such decision," Valak said. "What I tell you now is against council regulations. Your people have engaged the Vrexian fleet at Neptune." Cynthia's heart raced. And they have done the impossible," Valak said. "They disabled the Vrexian command ship. The fleet has withdrawn to regroup." Cynthia couldn't hide her surprise. "Our defense was successful." "More than successful," Valak said. "Word is spreading through council space rapidly. Many species are watching with great interest." "Why are you telling me this?" Cynthia asked. Valak's large eyes blinked slowly. "Because the truth must be known. The ultimatum sent to Earth was never approved by the full council. It was a Vrexian initiative, pushed through procedural loopholes." "That's illegal under council law," Cynthia said. "Yes," Valak agreed. "The Vrexians have dominated the council for centuries. Many species have grown tired of it, but none dared to challenge them." Another alien appeared at the doorway, this one with metallic blue skin that seemed to shimmer. "We must hurry," the newcomer said. "This is Representative Lorne of the Novans," Valak explained. "Another ally." "The station is in chaos," Lorne said. "News of the Neptune battle has reached the council chambers. The Vrexian representatives are demanding immediate military action against all human worlds." "Will the council agree?" Cynthia asked. "Half will oppose it," Valak said. "But the Vrexians may act without full approval." Again, Lorne approached Cynthia. "We believe you should know why the Vrexians fear humanity so much." "Our rapid technological progress," Cynthia guessed. "Partly," Valak said. "But more importantly, your diplomatic approach. Most new species entering the galactic community either submit completely to council authority or rebel violently. The Vrexians know how to handle both responses. Humans did neither," Lorne added. "You engaged respectfully but maintained independence. You studied council technology but developed your own path. This threatens the Vrexians' control." Valak looked at a small device in one of his hands. "We must go. Security sweeps will begin soon." "Where are you taking me?" Cynthia asked. "To our private communications center," Lorne said. "We have access to the Council's central database. All information on Council species' military capabilities, political structures, and weaknesses." "Why would you share that with us?" Cynthia asked. Valak's expression turned solemn. "For 12,000 years, the Vrexians have presented themselves as peacekeepers. The truth is they have engineered conflicts between species, keeping potential rivals weakened while they grew stronger." "The attack on your people was not about peace," Lorne said. "It was about maintaining Vrexian control. But they miscalculated. Your victory at Neptune has given hope to many council species." Cynthia followed them into the corridor. "If I can get this information to Earth, what do you want in return?" "When humanity confronts the Vrexians," Valak said, "remember that not all council species are your enemies. Many would welcome a new order." As they moved through hidden passages of the Harmony Station, Cynthia realized the true nature of the conflict had changed. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about reshaping the galaxy itself. In the distance, alarms began to sound. Their escape had been discovered. But Cynthia moved with new determination. The information she carried could change everything. If she could get it to Admiral Miller, humanity would not just survive the Council's attack. They could end Vrexian dominance forever. Admiral Susan Miller stood in the war room at Earth's Space Command headquarters. The holographic display showed the current positions of all human and Council ships. The UES Defiance glowed bright blue, moving well beyond the Neptune defense line, pursuing the retreating Council vessels. Captain Nelson has exceeded his orders, General Paul Garcia said, his voice tight with concern. Yes, he has, Susan replied. She didn't sound angry. And it might be the best decision anyone has made in this conflict. The door to the war room slid open. A young officer rushed in, her face flushed with excitement. Admiral, we've received an encrypted transmission from Ambassador Ross. Susan turned sharply. Ross? She's being held on the Harmony station. Not anymore, apparently, the officer said, handing Susan a data tablet. The message came through one of our emergency channels. It includes nearly a terabyte of data on Council species, military capabilities, and, she paused, her eyes wide, detailed navigation charts of all Vrexian space. Susan scanned the information quickly, her expression changing from surprise to determination. Get me a secure line to the Defiance, and contact Dr. Wright on Ganymede. Tell him to prepare all Frostfire systems for immediate deployment. What are you planning, Admiral? Garcia asked. Susan looked up, a cold smile forming on her lips. Operation Homecoming. 3 hours later, Captain Greg Nelson received his new orders aboard the Defiance. He read them twice to be sure he understood correctly. They want us to do what? His first officer asked. Not retreat to Neptune, Greg said. Admiral Miller is sending us reinforcements. 6 more ships, including 2 more fitted with Frostfire systems. He looked at the star chart displayed on his tablet. And then we're heading straight to Vrexi Prime. The Vrexian homeworld. Dr. Alan Wright asked, shock evident in his voice. That's deep in Council space. We'd need to pass at least 3 heavily defended systems to get there. Greg handed him the tablet. Not according to this. Ambassador Ross has provided us with navigation data showing a path that bypasses their defense networks. Apparently, there are spatial anomalies the Vrexians use as shortcuts around their own territory. And we're going to use their secret paths against them, Alan said, understanding dawning on his face. Exactly, Greg nodded. But that's not all. Ambassador Ross is broadcasting the truth to all Council worlds. The Vrexians have been manipulating interspecies conflicts for thousands of years, keeping potential rivals weak through engineered wars while presenting themselves as peacekeepers. The bridge crew exchanged looks of determination. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. It was about freeing dozens of species from Vrexian control. Meanwhile, on the Harmony station, Cynthia Ross worked frantically with her new allies. The Trell and Novan representatives had given her access to the Council's broadcasting network. From a hidden communication center, she was sending the evidence of Vrexian manipulation to every Council world. The Vrexian security forces are trying to shut down the network, Lorne warned, his metallic blue skin shimmering under the emergency lights. They're too late, Cynthia said. The data has already been transmitted to over 60% of Council space. The truth is out there now. Valak, the Trell representative, monitored the communications. Reports are coming in from multiple worlds. Protests have begun on at least 7 planets. 3 Council species have already recalled their representatives. Cynthia nodded grimly. The Vrexians will respond with force. They won't give up control easily. Which is why your military's plan must succeed, Valak said. The Vrexians have never faced a real threat to their homeworld. If your Operation Homecoming can reach Vrexi Prime, it might force them to negotiate. Cynthia looked at the star map showing the planned route of the human fleet. It was daring, perhaps even reckless. But if it worked, it would change the galaxy forever. The people of Earth have a saying, she told her allies. Sometimes you need to fight fire with fire. She paused, remembering the reports of the Frostfire system, or in our case, fire with frost. Vrexi Prime hung in space like a green jewel. Its 3 moons orbited in perfect harmony, each hosting massive defense platforms. For 12,000 years, no enemy ship had entered this system. The Vrexian homeworld had never known war on its own soil. Until today. The human fleet appeared suddenly, emerging from what looked like a ripple in space. 7 ships led by the battle-scarred UES Defiance. They had used the secret spatial passages that the Phyrexians themselves had mapped but kept hidden from other Council species. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Greg Nelson watched the beautiful planet grow larger on the view screen. No response to our arrival yet, Lieutenant Maria Diaz reported. I think we genuinely surprised them. Defense platforms on the moons are powering up. Another officer called out. Orbital fleet is moving to intercept. Greg nodded calmly. Begin broadcasting Ambassador Ross's evidence package on all frequencies. Let every Phyrexian hear the truth about their leaders. Dr. Alan Wright looked up from his station. All 3 Frostfire systems are ready, Captain, but I have concerns. What kind of concerns, Doctor? Greg asked. Alan's face was troubled. The Phyrexian homeworld has a population of 11 billion. If we disable their planetary shields and climate control systems with Frostfire, millions could die from exposure. Greg studied the scientist for a moment. What are you suggesting? Precision targeting, Alan said. We can disable their military installations without affecting civilian systems. It will be harder, but... He paused. We came to end a threat, not commit genocide. Greg nodded slowly. Plot targeting solutions for military installations only. We're here to demonstrate capability, not to destroy. The Phyrexian defense fleet moved toward them, nearly 30 ships in tight formation. On the main view screen, a transmission appeared. High Marshal Xev Carax's face filled the screen. His yellow eyes narrowed in fury. You dare to invade Phyrexian space, he hissed. Your species will be erased from the galaxy for this insult. This isn't an invasion, Marshal, Greg replied. This is a demonstration. You thought humanity would be an easy target. We're here to correct that misunderstanding. Your pitiful fleet cannot hope to stand against the full might of Phyrexia Prime. Xev Carax said. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Greg smiled coldly. We're not here to fight your fleet. We've already proven we can defeat your ships. He nodded to his weapons officer. Target the primary defense platform on the largest moon. Fire Frostfire. The invisible cold field shot out from the Defiance. On the view screen, they watched as frost patterns spread across the massive defense platform. Its lights flickered and died. One down, Greg said. We can disable all your defenses just as easily. But we haven't harmed a single Phyrexian life, and we don't intend to. Unlike your attack on our Triton outpost. Xev Carax's face showed shock for the first time. What do you want? Open a channel to your planetary government, Greg said. They should hear what comes next. Meanwhile, across Phyrexian space, rebellion was spreading. Ambassador Cynthia Ross's broadcast had reached dozens of worlds. Species long dominated by the Phyrexians were rising up, demanding answers from their representatives. On the Phyrexian colony world Vextor, the local governor watched in horror as his security forces refused orders to fire on protesters. The Phyrexian Empire was beginning to crumble from within. On Phyrexia Prime, High Marshal Xev Carax received an urgent message from the planetary capital. Reports were coming in from across Phyrexian space. Uprisings, military defections, and demands for a new council. In desperation, Xev Carax opened a channel to his command staff. Target all rebellious worlds immediately. Prepare planet-killer weapons for deployment. We will make examples of them all. His second-in-command stared back in shock. Sir, those are civilian worlds. Billions of lives. They are traitors. Xev Carax shouted. Execute my orders immediately. The officer looked at his colleagues, then back at Xev Carax. No, sir, we will not. As the human fleet held position above Phyrexia Prime, Dr. Alan Wright watched the unfolding events with growing concern. What they had started could end in either a new era of peace or a bloodbath. The carefully maintained Phyrexian dominance was crumbling, but what would replace it? 3 months after the Neptune engagement, Earth's moon shone bright against the backdrop of space. A new structure stood on its surface, a massive dome of glass and metal that reflected the light of the distant sun. Inside, representatives from 26 spacefaring species gathered in a wide circular chamber. Admiral Susan Miller stood at the center, her gray uniform replaced with formal diplomatic attire. Beside her were Captain Greg Nelson, Dr. Alan Wright, and Ambassador Cynthia Ross. Together, they had changed the course of galactic history. "Welcome to Luna," Susan said, addressing the assembled delegates. 3 months ago, many of us were enemies. Today, we meet as equals to forge a new path forward. The chamber was arranged in concentric circles, with no species elevated above another. Even the Phyrexians were present, though their delegation was smaller and humbler than before. "The old council failed because it was built on lies and control," Cynthia said. "This new assembly will be founded on truth and mutual respect." Dr. Wright stepped forward. "As a gesture of good faith, Earth is sharing our Frostfire technology with all species present, not as a weapon, but as a tool for planetary climate control and energy production." Many delegates murmured in surprise. Humans were giving away their greatest advantage. "We didn't come to the stars to conquer," Alan continued. "We came to learn and grow. Frostfire can terraform worlds previously thought uninhabitable. It can end energy shortages on dozens of planets." Captain Nelson spoke next. "The UES Defiance and our other military vessels will form the core of a new joint defense force. No single species will control this fleet. Its sole purpose will be to protect all our worlds from external threats, together." A Phyrexian delegate rose slowly. It was not Exev Karax, who had been removed from power, but a younger member of their species. "Why include us at all?" the Phyrexian asked. "After what our leaders did, many would say we deserve exile." Susan looked at the delegate with steady eyes. "Because true peace doesn't come from punishment. It comes from understanding and second chances. The Phyrexian people didn't choose their leaders' actions, but they can choose their future." As the meeting continued, humans and aliens worked together to draft the articles of their new alliance. Outside the dome, Earth gleamed blue and green in the lunar sky. So much had changed in such a short time. Later that evening, Susan stood at the observation deck of the new headquarters. The stars spread out before her like infinite possibilities. Captain Nelson joined her, looking out at the same view. "Quite a change from 3 months ago," he said. Susan nodded. "When the council sent their final warning, they thought they were putting us in our place. I think we found it," Greg replied with a small smile. Ambassador Ross and Dr. Wright joined them, each carrying drinks from the reception. "The Trell representative told me that applications to study at Earth universities have increased 1,000%, Cynthia said. "Apparently, humans are now seen as the most innovative species in the galaxy." Alan laughed. "And the most stubborn. What do you think will come next?" Greg asked, looking at the assembly of alien ships docked at the lunar facility. Susan considered the question. "Challenges, certainly. Building trust takes time, but also opportunities we can't even imagine yet." As they stood together watching Earth rise over the lunar landscape, none of them could know exactly what the future would bring, but they had learned something important. When pushed, humanity didn't break or bow. They adapted, innovated, and turned threats into opportunities. The Galactic Council's final warning had been meant to put humanity in their place. Instead, it had helped humanity find it, not as subjects or conquerors, but as architects of a new and better galaxy. The old council had feared humanity's potential. The new alliance would help that potential flourish, not just for humans, but for all species willing to join them as equals among the stars.